Hey, y'all know what time it is, man. I'm out there riding that pine right now. You know what it is. I'm out here with my dog Bucky.
-2 yards. I didn't know that was possible. The Panthers fans have a question. No, it's not just why are they so terrible. No, it's not should they have just taken CJ Stroud. No, none of that. It's where is Jimmy Horn, right? Now, I want to point this out that a lot of what I do in some of the videos I make, I be on Twitter too much, right? But on Twitter, you start seeing what people feel. You start seeing how the fans feel and really an unadulterated feeling of how Carolina feels. And man, they are tired of these terrible receivers, right? Now, I do want to point out 2 weeks straight, Jimmy Horn Jr. has been inactive, a healthy scratch for the Carolina Panthers. Now, first things first, I think we have to, the first week, okay, cool, right? The depth chart is deep. You got Hunter Renfrow. You've got a lot of players there, right? Maybe they want to develop Jimmy Horn. Maybe the hamstring is trying to get there. But 2 weeks, and now you have this going on? This is Mr. Xavier Legette. Shout out Glorilla. Shout out XL. But you can't be in them music videos getting touched up by Big Glow and then show up on 8 targets, -2 yards. I didn't know that was possible. -2? Like, why y'all even tracking that at that point? Y'all just fucking 8 targets, -2 yards. So when you see that, what happens? Look, these are just Panthers fans. Why is Jimmy Horn still inactive? It's getting crazy. Here's Keep purring. This is a podcast. The Browns. There's the big dog or I forgot what they're called, but they do great stuff. I'm not too familiar with them, but the like ratio, they seem to be pretty deep within the Carolina community. And they says Dave Canales benched Bryce Young after 2 games last year for not performing, right? Not saying he should get no snaps at all, but what has XL shown to warrant being, and that's Xavier Legette, being on the field ahead of guys like David Moore and Bryson Themaine, not to mention Jimmy Horn Jr., who hasn't even been active. So I'm saying all this to say, right, here's another fan talking about it. Jimmy Horn Jr. is a healthy scratch, 2 games. Our wide receiver 2 could have 8 targets for -2 yards. And like we already talked about, and we're going to get deeper into it. But I want to point something out, and I hate to do this, but I have to use Jimmy Horn, and I want to put this out there. We don't know the full story. Maybe there's something going on with Jimmy Horn. I have to hope at this point, right? But we've watched all the interviews of Dave Canales talking about Jimmy Horn. What have we heard? Nothing but positive. We've heard Steve Smith comparisons, right? We've heard, hey, Jimmy Horn Jr. is the type of guy who just doesn't give up on routes, right? And this is T-Mac. I'm trying to give out some eye candy over my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Some nice routes that are being run. What's it called? So I want to point out 2 situations, right? Obviously, we have Bryce Young. Now, some people consider him a bum, right? Some people just think he's too small. He's not going to live up to the Alabama days, yada, yada, yada. And then you have a David Canales in a front office and a head coach that seemingly are behind Jimmy Horn. And they want to give Bryce Young as many great targets as possible. So how do we get here? Again, with all that being said, hearing David Canales say what he says about Jimmy Horn, hearing what the team says about Jimmy Horn was running around with Xavier Legette. He was on horses and 4-wheelers. I don't know what y'all be doing in Carolina. Carolina is the weirdest mix of country and I don't know what else. Jimmy was on a 4-wheeler. Xavier was on a horse. I don't know what was going on, but they was bonding. All right. It was beautiful. Bryce Young and Jimmy Horn was there with Xavier Legette and T-Mac, Adam Thielen for those private workouts. So I say all that to say it has to be a problem. It has to be an injury. I hope not because I want Jimmy Horn to be hurt, but because I can't imagine that things like this, Panthers Xavier Legette, and like we said, -2 yards on 8 targets, which is only the second game in NFL history with negative yards on at least 8 targets, which this is crazy, but Texas legend, Kansas City Chiefs legend, running back Jamal Charles had a -6 yards on 8 targets in 2013, which is, come on, leave my man Jamal Charles alone. But that's crazy. That's absolute crazy. And, you know, we're going to get deep into it. But looking at this team around and, you know, to get into some more stats, how does Bryce Young help, right? Bryce Young threw almost 60 passes over 300 passing yards and had 3 touchdowns. Almost came back, and this is from this last game they just lost, almost came back from a 27-3 deficit with the worst O-line in the league, terrible running backs, and yet Panther fans are blaming him for the loss. Trade Bryce right now. Y'all don't deserve him. So I'm saying all this because what team do we follow a lot? It is not going to take you long. The Browns, right? And I sit here and I yell into this mic and I tell you how dysfunctional and confusing the Browns are. I tell y'all, hey, and by the way, check out the distribution. T-Mac, that boy T-Mac, I told y'all. But anyway, not the point. Right? What I do want to make sure I get across is, we were talking about, we were talking about the Browns and hey, they're bad. I want to point out that a lot of people are bad at their job in the NFL. And I'm not saying that the Panthers or Dave Canales is necessarily terrible at his job or doesn't know what he's doing, but I do want people to open their minds up to the idea that some of these teams lose a lot of games for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not just always in the NFL specifically. It's not just all because the guys are that bad. I guarantee you. In college, it's different. College it's about the Joes, not the X's and O's. It all day, every day. The talent's gonna be right. Talent and space. That's college football. In the NFL, you gotta have talent and coaching. And not just that, but like we talked about, it's about the full package. How are you representing? How are you talking to the media? How is what you're saying in the media and saying to your players? How does that reflect in your actions? And right now, it's reflected as cutting Hunter Renfrow, bringing him immediately back onto the team so he can get 9 targets for 7 receptions, 48 yards. Now, not too bad. Tremaine's doing this thing. Chuba Hubbard's doing this thing. Look, you are getting some value from some things and some players. But maybe are they just overlooking Jimmy Horn? That's a possibility. It's a possibility because guess what the Panthers were doing this year? They were picking high. They didn't have a lot of wins. And right now they don't have a lot of wins either. So, you know, it's easy just to say, oh, Bryce Young this or this and that, XYZ. The Panthers defense in second halves of games this season, 6.5 points given up. 2 turnovers for us. That's 10th in the league. Negative .067 EPA per play. That's 12th in the league. 29.6 success rate versus the run. That's the 9th in the league. Those aren't bad numbers. This is what I mean by, hey, it's not just what's it called, players at this point. It seems like players are executing. It seems like a part of this team is executing. But it's resulting in losses. It's resulting in a tough time. And it's hard for me not to think that it has to do with Jimmy Horn Jr. sharing the space with what people are calling the worst wide receiver in the NFL. Now, he gonna play some NFL clips, so I'm gonna have to dip out a little bit and come back in, obviously, because you know what I'm saying. But the words are important. This is one of my favorite TikTokers. I know it's crazy, but he breaking stuff down. Let's hear from him, right?
But it is just not working. If he's not the worst receiver in football, he's at the very least the least efficient receiver in the league. Over the first 2 games of the season, he's been targeted 15 times, and he is a grand total of 4 receptions for 8 yards. 2 of those receptions were negative yardage plays.
Jeez.
And I think it's a bit of looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. We're talking about a freak athlete who's 6'3", 220 pounds, and you would just have no idea that was the case. He doesn't have a great feel for playing receiver or running routes. Like here, he's running an out to the sticks. I want you to watch his out compared to Tet's at the top of the screen. Tet is to Bryce should have gone to here. The corner's really bailing off of him, and you'll see when he does his out, it is right at the sticks, right at the first down marker, which is where Bryce wants to throw the ball. You'll see that when Legette plants his foot to get towards the sideline, he keeps fading up past the sticks. He's a good 2 yards past where this ball should be caught. He doesn't at all try to box out this DB. He doesn't at all try to come back to the ball. And he doesn't even try to stick his hands out. He tries to catch it with his chest. You're 6'3". The other DB is 5'11". Put your hands out, please. And then there's the issue of, even when he is open, he's having trouble staying in bounds. Here, the Panthers are just running smash. We've got a quick out by the tight end, and we've got Xavier Legette on a corner route up the field. Now, this is meant to put this flat defender in conflict. If he comes down to cover the flat, you throw the corner. If he stays to cover the corner, you throw it to the flat. You'll see the DB, Xavier Jones, bites down just a tad to stay over the top of this flat route. Bryce Young is under pressure, sees it, throws a fantastic ball to Legette, who doesn't get his second foot down in bounds. I don't know how this foot doesn't come in bounds, but it doesn't. He has no...
So I want to point this out because, you know what I'm saying, because I don't want to just steal his TikTok. He does great stuff. What I forgot, it's not showing me his name, but his name is Coach. Oh, it's right here. Okay, cool. Dean Talk Sports. It's not signed in. I'm following him. Don't worry. He does great stuff. He does great breakdowns. He's like Theo Ash with a little more bass in his voice. So shout out to Theo Ash too. He does great stuff. But what I like about this particular point that he points out, right, or these two things, right? We're talking about a second-year receiver who has been predicated off being a physical receiver, who's known to not be the best route runner, right? And that goes to being a professional and being called to task. When you're called to task to do that, you don't become a better route runner. And then put the route running aside, the awareness, spatial awareness. We rant and we rave about how these young receivers they're so advanced, they're so this. Now, Jimmy Horn Jr., when he get on that sideline, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying when Jimmy Horn Jr. get on that sideline, it's all right. He gonna be good. I promise you. But this is a second-year, highly touted second round. I think he was a second-round pick out of South Carolina, right? Supposed to be the next more physical Deebo Samuel, but he can really stretch the field apparently. And you're telling me he doesn't have enough special awareness to get his second foot down? So this is where the concern comes for me. This is where the issue comes for me when we have back-to-back weeks of inactive Jimmy Horn Jr.'s. Shout out to the reunited for Xavier Ward. So I really want to ask the question, and I want to ask you the question, where is Jimmy Horn? I don't know where he is. I'm really hoping that there is an injury. Again, I've done research for this video. I've been selling this video for a few days. I go back and try to look at it again. I haven't seen any reports of anything negative. Apparently, he's a healthy inactive. You know what I'm saying? I'm hoping everything's cool, crispy, and under rest. I shouldn't say healthy inactive, but that's typically, if you're on the 53-man roster, you're not on the injury reserve and you're inactive for multiple days. Like that don't jive right. And he's been at practice too. This is September 10th, so he's also been participating in practice. So like, it's not adding up, or do they just? I don't know. But with all that being said, you have 8 targets on -2. And here's the problem. Before I end the video, I do want to say the only issue that he's gonna run into is it's Xavier Legette that's having a struggle. Now, we talked about this with the whole Shador stuff. Depending on where you get drafted, right? How much I gotta pay you, what level that you are for a financial commitment, it's going to determine your leash, right? Xavier Legette, right? First, second round. I'm not finna fact check myself, but a high round pick. He's also kind of enshrined within what it means to be a Carolina Panther right now, like the new age. He's the face. He's on, Glorilla, all that stuff, right? So when you put those together, it makes it harder for him to take Xavier Legette's spot. Realistically, it's going to take a few more negative 2-yard games. Now, it's possible. I don't think he's going to have many negative yard games and still be able to continue to start. But for Jimmy Horn to just immediately jump over Xavier Legette, like we're talking about a tall task. So I do want to make sure that we're being obvious there. But I don't want to say it's bad, but I think the thing to point out is that there's these other wide receivers, right? Tremaine was somebody who we talked about who was also on the edge. He was a guy that was competing, or Jimmy Horn would have to compete with to get that one of those final roster spots, and he's having himself a day. 48 yards, 16 average, right? 5 targets, and he's making value of it. Chuba Hubbard is making value out of it. Hunter Renfrow, the old man that we said, he's making value out of it, getting a lot of targets. Obviously, he's a bit of a safety blanket, right, for him. And then shout out to Jatavion Sanders, the tight end, at a guess where? Hook 'em horns. Y'all know what we do. Y'all know what we do, right? Right? Yeah, I know what that is. But hey, man, where is Jimmy Horn? I hope Jimmy Horn is all good and all great. I hope we hear from him soon. I want to see that boy get loose. Comment down below what you think is going on. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you don't like it. Subscribe if you like football content of any shape, size, form, fashion, and factor. Continue being phenomenal. We'll see you next time. Peace.